For those of you who watched us during the first season and some of you who are coming in for the first time, we started Torchbearer Thursday to showcase and bring to you one person, one speaker every Thursday who was doing extraordinary work either in an individual capacity or as part of an organization in the time of COVID. We knew we were going to be battling this creature, this demon for some time, and we needed to have everything, all ammo to stay positive, to stay upbeat, and to see what is it that we can do to contribute in a constructive, positive manner. And that's the reason why we launched. We've done 20 episodes of Torchbearer Thursday. We have a Torchbearer roundtable now, and we have our second time guest, Senior Advocate Sriram Panchu, who's the pioneering leader and the strongest voice for the cause of mediation in the country and globally as our torchbearer today. Thank you so much, Sriram, for coming in today. You are going to be doing 2 talks today, not one, I'm told. You're doing one again at 5 o'clock in the evening.
I'm doing one this evening, yes. I'm doing one this evening, Deepa. That's also a very interesting one. I'm doing that with Rohini Nilekani and Justice Kurian Joseph. And that is on the subject of building social muscle for creating dialogue.
Excellent, and such a need of the hour.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yes, so I think got there's an echo.
Is there an echo here?
Yeah, there's an echo. I don't know why there is an echo. Okay, it's gone. So, so Sriram, yeah, the Restream platform calls for a little more bandwidth. You might use us from time to time. Sorry about that.
Fine.
But Sriram, tell us, you have been practicing now for 44 years at the bar. As a Bombay boy, you ran away from Madras High Court. And you've been in Madras High Court now practicing for the longest. So Bombay's lost, Madras gained.
Well, it looks as though I've lost bandwidth over here.
Person you have called.
I lost bandwidth, I think.
No, we can hear you. You're here.
Okay. All right, fine. Okay, because I can't see the screen being activated. So yes,
you've moved a little to the side, so you need to be a little more to the right.
Is this okay? Is it better?
No, the other side.
The other way. Now?
Not yet. No, we can't see the face.
Yeah.
Just see your left shoulder.
Yeah. No, this thing is I think my one second.
Yeah.
Is that better now?
No. It's the same.
Let me see what's wrong.
The person you have called is speaking to someone else. You can wait or...
Sorry, give me a moment.
No.
I think Harikaran's trying to figure out but why am I not getting this?
So, I do want to tell our audience, we got very interested in the subject of mediation as an alternate method to dispute resolution during the lockdown times. And the reason was that there was a lot of resurgence of friction, challenges within the families. And while the wars had stopped, the UN Secretary General went on to say that the wars in the home were still raging. And we saw this at Lumiere as an opportunity to create awareness about mediation as a way to, an alternate way where you're not taking recourse to a litigative approach, but something which is more conciliatory to try and come to a middle ground for the parties. And this was when we had 6 sessions. You will see them, all of them on our YouTube channel. 6 sessions we did with senior lawyers, advocates, people who were believers in the idea of mediation. And that's when we had Advocate Sriram Panchu come in as our guest at that time. We also had Advocate Jawad in the same forum, and Advocate Parvez and Advocate Leena were my co-hosts as we did those events for you. In learning about mediation and getting to understand a subject that was also fairly new to me, we saw the potential, the immense potential in actually use this as a means for better understanding. And because we work in the area of consumer centricity, which calls for observation, listening, and dialogue, a lot of the processes, the practices, and more importantly, the belief behind mediation we could align with completely. And that was where we felt we need to bring this topic, this subject into the fore and have it as one of our torchbearer events. So when we asked Advocate Sriram Panchu if he would come in as our Torchbearer Thursday guest, he very kindly accepted the invite, and that's how we are here today. This time we won't be doing the Torchbearer event every Thursday because thankfully there's been a little bit of looking up of work. When we started Torchbearer Thursday, we were actively looking for ways to stay busy, keep our team, our associates engaged and enthused. Now, for the last couple of weeks, that work has started picking up. We might not be able to keep to the same tempo of bringing you this event. So we want to bring this to you on the first Thursday of every month. So we'll be doing, so here, you're back. Thank you. So Sriram, tell our audience, I've been telling them a little backstory about how you came in earlier, but I haven't told them anything about you. I would like you to tell them how your journey with the Madras High Court began, Sriram, and that's a story people should listen to. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Yes.
Now,
Yes.
I'm a Bombay boy. I grew up in Bombay, except for the 3 years of boarding school which I went to in Hyderabad. But college was Bombay, Elphinstone and Government Law. And I was all set to practice in the Bombay High Court, either with Mr. Ashok Desai or Mr. Iqbal Chagla, both very senior lawyers. And I was chairman of the Government Law College Students' Council in my last year. We did a lot of anti-emergency work. So I was just very much there. And when I went to Chennai for a holiday to see my grandparents, before I got back to practice, and a cousin of mine said, "Why are you wasting your time here? Go meet a few lawyers, get advice on how you should start." Because I had nobody in the profession, no godfather. So I met a few lawyers, and then I met Govind Swaminathan. He was 69 years old. He was the former Advocate General. I had one meeting with him, and somewhere in the course of that meeting, I just realized I'm going to leave everything and come and join this man. Which of course met a hectic opposition from everybody in my family, who used all tools of rational thinking at me, and I had nothing to say, in defense of his decision, except the decision itself. I said I'm sticking to it, and I went and joined him, and I was with him for 20. From 1976 to 2003. Even after I became a senior lawyer, even after I got designated as a senior counsel, I stayed with him. I don't think a senior advocate has ever stayed, within the chambers of his senior. So I stayed with him right through. He's everything to me. He was part father, he was mentor, he was friend, he was advisor, he was guide. So that was it. I think the other reason also is that Madras gave me a bandwidth for the kind of things I want to do. I think in Bombay I found difficult. I would have had to be either a solicitor or somebody at the lawyer at the bar, counsel at the bar. But Madras gave me this liberty to kind of the flexibility to tailor my practice the way I wanted to. And therefore, I use that. And right from the beginning, I've done conventional law, commercial and constitutional law. But to that, I've always added on other elements. So for a number of years, the beginning, it was public interest cases, consumer environment groups, public interest cases. And from the 90s, although that has continued to some extent, it's been mediation, while all the time having a conventional law practice. So Madras has permitted that. Madras gives you that, that room, that flexibility. It's an easier paced city. So you're able to incorporate these extra elements into your life and work.
Marvelous. So there's an echo that's coming for some reason. I hope we can get rid of it. Yeah. So Sriram, you can hear me?
I can hear you, Deepa. I don't know what about this echo. I'm sorry.
No, it's I think it comes and goes. So how did, when you work in India, when you work in India and you work abroad, there is a cultural difference that you must experience, and how does that, how do you get past that? How do you sort of study and sort of are able to come to that understanding of the parties and their, the interests, and trying to find a middle ground? How do you approach it? And maybe you want to share that, and I'm curious about the cultural aspect, and trying to understand that.
I think cultural differences are important, and it's important that the mediator should be aware of that and pay attention to it. It also, in a sense, a mediator helps to bridge the difference between cultures. But for that, you must be comfortable with both cultures. Now, I'll give you a quick example. I was mediating a very big intellectual property dispute, and the head of an American company was a very affable fellow. And in the first meeting, he said, "Call me Pat. I won't have it any other way." And the head of the Indian company was a very conservative gentleman. I'll call him Mr. Sharma. Okay, very conservative. Now, I knew that if in the joint session I addressed Pat as Pat, Mr. Sharma would think there was something terribly wrong. So I had to be very careful in that joint session. And I knew that if I addressed Pat by his formal name, he would get upset. So I had to be very careful not to use his name at all, not mention him by name in this. And similarly the other way, because if Pat heard me address Mr. Sharma, why is he being so respectful to him? So just to give you a small illustration, I think it helps to tell people, look, if they're a different culture, it helps to tell them that, look, I may not be conversant with every nuance of your culture. So if I make a mistake, please tell me so, and I will express, an apology for it. But let me tell you another beautiful one. This agreement in this case is all ready to sign. It is set for a particular time, 10:30 in the morning on a day of the week. And the Americans are there at 10:15. And the Indians don't show up. The Americans wanted it on Saturday because they had to take the flight back, to America. Although the Indian guy said, let's have it next week. No, it has to be on Saturday. So they didn't show up. The Indians didn't show up. 10:30, 11, 11:15, 11:30, they didn't show up. And these guys said they are not coming. This is all a waste of time. I'm leaving. I said, just wait till 12. Just wait till 12. So how are you so sure, Mr. Panchu? I said, just wait. What does it cost you? Let's have another cup of coffee. Sure enough, 5 to 12, the Indians, stream into the room. And the American tells me, he says, what's going on over here? You seem to know what's going on. I said, look here, this country is full of auspicious and inauspicious times. Days, months, and times of the day. 10:30 to 12 today is inauspicious. They will not sign. Now they've come to sign. Now come on, we'll finish it in 10 minutes.
So when you say auspicious and inauspicious, I want to tell the audience that I chose Thursdays because it's very auspicious. So Sriram, the of the matters that you've worked with, there have been successes, there have been not such, they've not been successes. I don't know whether I could call them failures, but maybe the time is not right yet. How does one deal with when things don't quite go the way you want them to? How do you deal with it? How do you process it? How do you get back on even keel for the next matter?
That's a great question. I'll answer it in two parts. One, I don't ever think there's anything like a failure in a mediation. Because even if a mediation hasn't succeeded in resulting into a formal settlement agreement, you have made the parties better aware of their positions, their long-term interests. You know, you've asked them to look at things in a wider perspective. You've enhanced their knowledge of where they are. Crucially, you've made them aware of the fact that there are very little alternatives to settlement. And you have engaged them in the task of coming up with options for settlement. So they know there are options for settlement. But they also know that the other side is also looking for options for settlement. And that the other side is also keen on settlement. So the fact that you haven't got it that day, it doesn't matter. You'll get it 3 months hence, 6 months hence. But your whole thinking has changed from being just powerfully adversarial to being possibly consensual.
Yes.
Okay? So it's ever a failure. The other thing I would say is, personally, I think the greatest thing on this is to follow the philosophy of the Gita. And just to say, this is my work, allotted to me, I do it, but the result is not in my hands. And if you can do that, it's easy to say, it's easy to say, it's a great, teaching in our scriptures. It's easy to say, it's very difficult to actually inculcate it, into your practice. But to the extent you can, and I think it's an ongoing process also, to the extent you can, it is the most wonderful way to function. Just to say, you've allotted me this work, I'll do it in your name and for you. The result is in your hands, not mine.
That's how the equanimity, I guess, sets back. Which are there must be ones where issues or subjects, or when there are matters where you feel not quite neutral, where you feel strongly about the rightness of something because you're coming where you come from. How does then one really play that part of being impartial? Has that happened to you sometimes when you have to rise above your beliefs and what you think is just and right, and how do you do that?
Why are you asking me all the toughest questions I've ever encountered, in a mediation interview? It's all like coming at me thick and fast. This is a really tough, good one, really good one. Look, if it's an issue where you are outraged by something which has happened, then perhaps it may not be a case of mediation at all. Let me give you an example of somebody who adulterates baby food. And if a judge is unwise enough to send it to mediation, it will be a case where I'll be outraged at what this man has done. In the first place, that case shouldn't have come to mediation. And once I got to know what that case would be, I would say I'm not going to mediate this. So I would simply say I'm not going to mediate this. Because I'm not going to curb my strong feeling of injustice and try and temper it down so that I can mediate some case. No, I won't do that. I'll say I'm not mediating this, and I might well say just send it back to court or whatever. This is not for mediation. So I would say that, in the strong cases where you actively feel, outraged. There are other cases where you feel that one party has done something wrong which he or she shouldn't have done. Now, do I as a mediator say, well, that's really for the other party to take care of? You see, there are two styles in mediation. One is a facilitative style, where the mediator basically, just handles the process, but everything else is in the hands of the parties, the decision making, the way it flows, etc. The other is an evaluative style, where the mediator gets more involved,
Yeah.
in actually engaging with them in active ways of resolution. And I practice that style. So if I found that a party was being unfair, usually what I do is to take that party aside in a separate conversation and say, look, you might think you can get away with it, but I don't think you're being fair here. Now, many mediators will not do that. They will not go to the point of telling a party, I think you're being unfair. I get away with it because I'm senior. I'm senior enough. The lawyers know me, they respect me, the parties know me, so they will take it from me. They may not take it from another mediator, to be very frank. So I don't advocate this as a general method of practice. But this is what, again, it depends, Deepa, on whether you want their trust. If they trust you, they'll give you a lot of latitude. Once they trust you, they know this man is fair, and he wants to help us to reach a settlement, and he has a good reputation. We respect him. Once you get that stage, they'll give you a lot of latitude. And quite often, you have to have a problem of them telling you, sir, you tell us what to do. And I say, I can't tell you what to do. That's not my. I'm not. My mandate is I can't tell you what to do. That you must figure out. I can help you, but don't leave the baby in my court. I can't do that. So I find that, especially in India, I think in India people look up to authority. And although the mediator has no formal authority like a court, like a judge or an arbitrator has, once you gain their trust, and because you're in the middle, see, giving you in the middle also gives you a position of authority. It's not the elevated authority of a judge, but it's yet the person in the middle to whom we can reach out and talk. And I think one should use that. Yeah.
You've been a big advocate of speaking up, of this silent middle. Maybe you want to, and you're going to be talking about a whole seminar this evening, but tell us a little more about what are the responsibilities of thinking people, and what is it that what we believe, what is really the way to be going forward, so that we can preserve dialogue, listening, mutual respect.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I think we should identify what we want to preserve. And I think one of the things we should identify as being very centrally what we want to preserve is simply our constitution. I think our constitution is our public religion. I think it's the highest. It is our public religion. We all have our private religions, which are sacred to us. They are sacred to our hearts, and they are sacred in our homes. But I think outside in the public, it is the constitution which reigns supreme. Because this is a constitution we gave ourselves. It is one of the most wonderful constitutions in the world. It incorporates, every sacred principle of coexistence and human dignity. And we are very lucky that we have it. We're lucky that we have the arms of government and the courts. But a constitution is a living document only to the extent it is upheld all the time. And it is upheld not just by the courts and those in power. It is, I think, also it is something which must see ringing affirmation everywhere. In the media, from journalists, from writers, from people who articulate their views, to say we want, this is about a sacred to us, because it's a constitution which does two things. It protects our rights, and therefore, like an invasion of freedom of speech is a constitutional affront. You know, an unreasonable gag order is a constitutional affront. But it also binds us as people. It binds us as a society. It keeps us together. It keeps us together. I mean, we are a mosaic, frankly. We are a mosaic of, and that's what makes India so wonderful. That it's a mosaic of religions, cultures, traditions, faiths, beliefs. That's what's so special about it. Um, and we have our, wonderful. We are a country which is rich in time and rich in newness.
Yes.
We're an amazing country. So I think it's time we inculcated this, this reverence for the Constitution, this love for the country. And when you said speaking out, see, whenever there's an issue, it is the relevant discourse that takes over, captures people's minds, and guides and molds public thinking. So if there is a dispute, like any kind of dispute, and everybody is like at cross purposes, the rhetoric is negative, the actions are negative, people are adversarial, they're mounting attacks at each other, they're screaming invective at each other. I mean, look at 9/10 of the news channels going around, okay? That tends to capture the people's minds. And then people think, well, this is it. This is what we've come to. Sad, but this is what we are. And the only way, I think, against that is for the others to say, no, this is not it. You want breaking news, you'll get that kind of rubbish. But this is not who we are. We are people who want, we want to live together, we want a consensus, whether it's river water sharing or a temple mosque dispute or whatever. We want to find solutions. We want to keep our bandwidth. We want to be together. And they must, we must call upon authority to find the solutions. In this early years of the Republic, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, our politicians were naturally, they were solution finders. I mean, they would reach across political divides and find solutions and, make accommodations and compromises, adjustments. They were all masters, many of them masters of it. I mean, who better than Atal Bihari Vajpayee? Wonderful example, Pranab Mukherjee. But they must be reinforced by people saying this is what we want. So the minute people say this is what we want, then things will tune in that way. But we must say what we want. We cannot. The thing about the silent majority and why it's so futile is that it's silent. Its power is that it is a majority. Its handicap is that it is silent. So we don't just have a right, I think we have a constitutional duty to speak out also. And I think if we speak out, if we vocalize, I keep saying now that, vigilance is full vigilance only when it's accompanied by vocalization. That you must speak out. And when you do, you'll find accompanying voices. And those rise to a crescendo. And then you take over the dominant narrative. That's the reason why, I mean, this is, it's born out of my experience with mediating Ayodhya, that I found that the great majority of people wanted, a solution in the middle. Something which would harmonize it for both communities and end this dispute and get on to a better way of, living with each other. There were a few who were of other persuasions, the more extreme persuasion. And I found that, the discourse was skewed, that the narratives were more on that side. And that started me thinking, to saying, no, we should create some, we should create forces to harmonize, to bring more power to those harmonizing voices in the middle. So that's what the Center for Moderating Dialogue is all about.
Yes. That was so well answered. And I really think when you talk about the Constitution as our public religion, I think that statement is going to stay with all of us, our viewers today, and those who will possibly watch this talk 5 years from now, staying as important a principle for us to remember and think of. Sriram, because we also work and we have been involved in some causes like transformation of education and transformation of parenting, the whole mindset of mediation, a mindset to give and take, a mindset to listen. Uh, how early can it be cultivated? Is this something that we can, to bring into the collective consciousness? What is it that schools, before that parents, can do to bring this? Is there something you can share with us for all of us?
Well, let me tell you one good piece of news. As far as the legal segment is involved, the Chief Justice of India had told the Bar Council that they should introduce mediation as a compulsory semester in the law program. So,
Wow.
come next year, mediation will be a full semester course. And the Center for Mediation Studies, which we've recently started in Chennai, has been given the task of creating the syllabus and the curriculum, which we've done. We've also, um, we did that. Then we told the Bar Council, if you want some help in training teachers, we'll help. And the Bar Council came back and said, yes, please do it. You take over the task of training the teachers because they're all fresh trainings now. There are no existing teachers in mediation. All fresh training, and without thinking too much, I said, yes, I'll do it. And then I asked them later, I said, how many teachers? And they said, sir, we have 1,200 law schools across the country. That's how many teachers. Right? So we have a great team working on it. They've developed a first-rate, module, a set of modules, combining online and recorded interviews. So I think they're doing a great job. So it'll roll beautifully. It'll roll very well. So law, yes, law definitely, because um, there's so many avenues for mediation in a legal or semi-legal career. Whether you're at the bar or a solicitor or in a company or working for an NGO or government, wherever, there's so many avenues. But well outside that, I can't think of any field, basically any field in which you have disputes arising is a field for mediation. Any field. So I think companies will do well to have a mediation set up, in an organization, and you offer it to people in dispute. I look at the kind of disputes that come in the business world, and I spoke recently about the Tata Mistri dispute. Yeah, and I said that was a dispute which should have gone to mediation. I mean, a house like the Tatas, which is known for their principles, their human values. How did they not mediate this dispute and get a result which worked for both people,
Yeah.
for the company, for the shareholders, for the community? All of them would have benefited by a mediated settlement, an effort to settle this matter, because it could have been settled. It didn't have to go on, in this litigative, strongly adversarial way. It didn't benefit anybody, not the Tata name, not the Tatas, not the Sinistris group, not anybody. So I think companies also should realize that they should not just have legal departments, they should have dispute resolution advisors. Because when you have a particular dispute, you need to know how am I going to handle this dispute? What's the best way to handle it? You see, to give everything to a conventional legal department is like anybody with an illness goes to a hospital and they say, well, send him off to the surgical ward. So we have to be far more sensitive and far more aware of the fact that for different kinds of disputes there are different kind of remedies. So ideally, I think people should have dispute resolution advisors who said, look, this one, go to litigation. For this, you go to arbitration. This, try mediation. For this, let's just reach across and do a negotiation and help them to structure it that way. But if you want to know how early one should start, do you have the time for one of my classic stories? Lawrence Susskind, the man who taught me mediation in 1991 at the Salzburg seminar. Incidentally, last night I was chatting with my other teacher, Chris Moore, both great guys, and they really opened my eyes. And I told Chris, I said, I think my country has a lot to thank. If it has a lot to thank me for mediation work, it has to thank you. You're the one who taught me to do this. Anyway, Lawrence Susskind, great teacher at MIT and Harvard, does all kinds of conflict resolution world over. He is called in by the parent teacher association of his son's school. His son is some 6 years old, and says, Mr. Suskin, you're this big shot mediator. Can you do something about children fighting in the yard? Now, Lawrence Suskin has never faced this problem before. But, he's not daunting. He said, I'll think about it. So he comes back and he devises something, and they take a classroom and they take a corner of the classroom and they put up 3 sentences. And they take 2 pairs of cardboard feet, they cut them, 2 pairs, and place them again facing each other. So here's how it goes. The kids were caught fighting in the yard. The teachers used to catch hold of them, make them stand facing each other across on these cardboard feet, and they had to do the 3 things on the wall, written on the wall. And the first was listen to the other. So each one had to stop, and the other had to speak, and this one had to listen to the other. Now, this is completely new for anybody in conflict. It's new for children, and mind you, it's new for adults. We don't listen. We are so full up of why the other is wrong and what I'm going to say when I get my chance to speak. But listen to the other. Because you give the other a chance to vent, and you vent, and some negative stuff goes out. And then the second thing was, think of something good for you and good for the other. So that's a very different way of thinking, Something good for me and good for him. Okay, fine. You take the baseball bat today, but you give me a football tomorrow. But the immensity of human conflict in the cases I've seen over the years, it's the same thing. There's something one wants and there's something another wants, and they can, you take a divorce case and husband and wife are fighting of the house, and you ask the husband in a mediation, why do you want this house? And he says, sir, it's my family property, I can't give it up. And you ask the wife, madam, why do you want this house? And she says, sir, I need it. I need to live here with my child who has to go to school and college. They want it for completely different reasons. But when you know why they want it, you can accommodate both those reasons. I do a border dispute between states over a huge tract of land. And when they talk to me in private, one state says, the chief minister says, I don't actually want to use this land, I want it because I can't be seen to give up my constitutional territory. And the other chief minister says, legalities don't really this thing. We want to use this land. We don't have lands on the plains. This is the only land we have on the plains. And we could actually, I think, at some time that didn't become possible then because other things took over. But it's a beautiful setting for creating a kind of a trusteeship concept within the Indian Constitution. For 2 states, they were not 2 rivals, they were not 2 different countries, they were just 2 states within the same union, and they could have worked out something. Well possible, maybe possible one day. But that's it, when you get to know. So anyway, back to these kids. Listen to the other, think of something good for you and good for the other. And the third, shake hands before you leave. And that is important because there must be a signal that conflict has ended. We all need that signal, We have it, in the legalistic term by signing an agreement. People shake hands. But I've seen ever so many cases where something is signed and then the younger brother falls at the feet of the elder brother and says, Anna, and the elder brother says, this is what I wanted for 14 years, if we just had this before, we wouldn't have fought. All kinds of things will happen. Every mediator will tell you of the number of these kind of cases where people just become human beings after they're led out of this stupid conflict. So anyway, Deepa, the main thing in this story was that for some time, the teachers had to catch hold of the children and bring them to these pair of cardboard feet and make them do these 3 things. One fine day, something else happened. a fight broke out, and suddenly one child said to the other, without the teacher, one child said to the other, let's go to the feet. That's your magic. That's your magic. We said, how can we teach people? You've taught that child that, look, if I'm in conflict, I can address it myself.
Yes.
I don't need a third person, a judge or an arbitrator. I can do it myself, and I can do it in a good way, not with fisticuffs or litigation thing. I can talk to the other person and say, can't we find something that works for both of us? That's the kind of lesson I think we need to bring out, to take out to our schools.
Amazing. And to our homes. Last 5 minutes, I want you to talk to our audience about your idea of the Gratitude Foundation.
But you should say our idea, you're on that as well. Thank you for the opportunity. The idea of the Gratitude Foundation, we're calling it the Gratitude India Foundation, came very simply from some conversations I had when I wasn't too well a short while back. And the conversation simply was, whenever I have a meal, before that there was something else. It said two things. One, that gratitude as an element, ought to be a little more to the forefront in one's lives. When you look at your life, there is so much to be grateful for, but we don't acknowledge it too much or not enough. It ought to be, because there's so much to be grateful and to give thanks for. Also, the more you make it a foundation of one's life, the more you get for yourself. It's a wonderful base to have, gratitude. Arising from that is also this thought that can one use a sense of gratitude, and accompany that with giving in gratitude. And a very simple way it started, where we said, every time I have a meal, I'm grateful for the meal. If at that time I can think that, maybe there's somebody else, there are people who don't have a good meal. And if I can, in a very simple way, just press a button and see that whether it's 1 rupee or 5 rupee or 10 rupee, it goes to this person. Would that be possible? So we got a group of people together to discuss this idea. And Deepa, you joined this at a subsequent time. And the idea is to and the foundation is created, by the way. It's registered, it's up there. Is to create this fund, which does two things. One, it inculcates a spirit of gratitude by, messages, stories, experiences, anecdotes, and tries to create a community of people there. The other is to actually help us to do this active giving. So you create an app which enables you to, to set aside when you want to be reminded and how much you want to give. We're identifying beneficiaries, but we're also making sure that no portion, no percentage of the amount contributed is being deducted for running this foundation. For that, we're raising funds separately. So whatever is given goes completely to the beneficiaries. And as this grows, we want to form clusters of gratituders. People in different cities or different parts of the city, maybe even be school groups or college groups, who just take over and say, yeah, we are our cluster, we will raise our funds, we'll choose our beneficiary, and we will administer it. And that's fine, that's actually what we want. Because we want the community to grow, the community of gratituders. And so we can be kind of linked together in this. So this is the idea. Thank you for the opportunity to share it.
Thank you, Sriram. So we are at the last minute. What can I sum of this topic, which was, the whole talk where every word has been so wise and so gracefully shared with all of us. If you all joined in late, I'd like you not just to go to the beginning of this interview, but also to go and listen to the earlier talk. And so many talks that Advocate Sriram Panchu has given, continues to give, is giving one this evening. Understand and let's think and reflect deeply about what he tells us about the whole idea of listening to the other, yeah, looking at what's good for the other and what's good for us, and finally coming to a close by shaking hands, by a sign of acceptance, of conciliation, that we are all back on the same even platform. I think there's so much that our world needs of this wisdom today, and it's really up to us to practice this in our homes, in our workplaces, and imbibe these values in ourselves and in our children. This is the only way. Thank you so much, Sriram, for coming here as our first torchbearer. To the audience for coming in and watching us on our first episode. All the very best. Stay happy, stay peaceful, and work with the idea of we don't own the outcomes, but we can be a part of a sincere process of whatever it is that we work with. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sriram.